Uh, cool. Awesome. So welcome to the June edition of Uncharted. Nancy, Mika, Anina, Callie, Antonia. It's good to see you guys again. It's good to have some familiar faces back. Um, and yeah, let's get started by let's do a little kind of grounding exercise together. I always like that. It's such a treat to just kind of get to tap in and get grounded. So I've been doing this thing lately where I noticed that when I try to kind of like change my mood, like say I'm having some negative thoughts and I'm like, I'm gonna have some positive thoughts. That'll fix everything, right? I try to find certain things in the world of form where I'm like, well, this is going really well for me. So I'll think about that thing, or I'll focus on this thing that's going good. And then it's a fine thing to do. But lately I've been focusing just on noticing a feeling of aliveness in me and focusing on it without there being any attachment to a scenario or anything outside of me, but just feeling something, noticing where I feel it, and then just putting more and more attention on that. And sometimes it feels like it's gonna get so big that it's gonna explode. And it's almost kind of frightening. I'm like, how good could this feeling get? And what is it? And why does it, how does it work this way? So I don't know what the answers to any of that, but I do know that it's something that I want to explore together just as we get started. So if that sounds good to you, you can close your eyes if it's safe to do so. And we'll just take a few breaths and we'll play. We'll do this together, and then we'll come back and we'll kind of jump into the more talky part of our time together tonight. So, so just settle into your body and start turning on your ability to notice. Noticing how you're feeling inside and out. Noticing if there's any sounds or sensations that maybe weren't so apparent to you a minute ago, and now there they are. And just breathe into this heightened sense of awareness. This space that some refer to as the generous present moment. And as your awareness kind of dances with all these different sensations in your body, sounds, temperature, just this awareness of the now, begin to bring your attention to the sensation of aliveness inside your body. This may be a really pronounced and obvious sensation, or it could be like the subtle scent of an unscented flower, that sort of just air of nature without sort of an overwhelming, obvious answer. Either way, it's all good. When I feel it in my heart area and in my solar plexus area, kind of in between there. So no matter how small or how big this sensation is, begin to put your focus on it like a focused curiosity. Not quizzing it or asking it for answers, but just simply feeling it. And as you feel it, start to breathe into it. And notice how it sort of expands with every inhale And then with each exhale, it stays the same size. And then expands again with each new inhale. As I breathe into this sensation of aliveness, the corners of my mouth can't help but turn up. And I feel this like smile coming on that seems to kind of be alive in every one of my cells. So whatever that sensation is for you, just keep breathing through it. This sense of aliveness is outside of any story about health or well-being, circumstance, or anything like that. It's exclusive to you and your experience of being alive. Maybe it feels as though your heart wants to burst. It's so full of aliveness. Just keep breathing into it, knowing that it's safe. We'll take one final breath together for now, knowing that we can revisit this place at any time. Filling ourselves up to the brim with that feeling of aliveness. And then letting it go and slowly coming back to the room. Welcome back. So I know all of you have attended one of these in some capacity at some point, but I don't know if you all have done so on the same day. Oh, Bear is here. He's so cute. I see a dog and I'm like, I'm gone, I'm out.
It's Wolf, but
Wolf,
I had used to.
Right, that's right. Wolf. Okay.
I'm Bear.
Yeah, he's not a bear. He is more of a wolf than a bear. Oh, what a sweetie. So why don't we go around and, just kind of briefly introduce ourselves, let everyone know who you are. If you want to tell them where you're joining in from today, that's cool too. And a prompt I really like, I recently got this game. It's a game of stories by Esther Perel. It's called Where Should We Begin? And one of the cards in it that I pulled today is a rule I secretly love to break. So I would love for you, if that prompt sparks something fun in you, great. If not, you can share a little bit about maybe what you'd like to get out of the session today. If there's something that just kind of feels like it's alive in you that you'd like to play with or, explore. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to start with you, Mika, because I feel like if there's anyone in this room that doesn't need much time to prepare for a question like that, it would probably be you. And I mean that in the best possible way.
Yeah, Mika and Wolf. I'm in Northern California. And it's, I'm sort of in this zone of transition. Some changes are happening and transitions, and it's in the gray area. So I think that's kind of exciting, you know. It's like not going into fear about like, oh no, what next? That, you know, when one door closes, another door opens kind of thing. And so I'm in between those doors, and it's so I would break all rules of fear. And embrace the unknown, and find it like it's in the unknown, you know, the thing where the unknown is actually a comfort zone.
Beautiful. I like that. And I like the idea of breaking all rules of fear, because, you know, that's so much of what we build up our, you know, the way that we navigate through the world. When we really look at it, it's like, well, why do I do things that way? Well, because I'm afraid this will happen, you know? And so those can be the edgiest, most, you know, challenging rules to break, because on a societal level, we're just all so comfortable being collectively afraid of certain things, and so doing it a certain way. Yeah, cool. And I like that you brought up transitions and gray areas, because it's kind of what I was feeling as well, for like kind of being a bit of a focus of this session. And then I kind of was playing around with some different ideas, so it was just really cool to hear you say that. And I think there's a thread here that's going to be interesting to follow. So I like that. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Nancy, why don't we go to you next? You are muted for now. There we go.
There. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. So nice to be here. I had intended to get here for the last session or the one before that. And today I had all kinds of reasons why it was too late and I wasn't going to be able to do it. But I was like, no, do it. So glad I'm here. That introduction was very relaxing. I almost went to sleep. I mean, I was just like really dropping. So that was very good. And let's see. One of the things that I'm playing with is just that real getting more comfortable and just settling into the unknown of I don't know. And I think Mika, you brought that up already. I was listening to I like this teacher Adi Shante, and he has a meditation about, you know, if you are doing all your meditation practice based on what you know, just to let go of all that and to just drop down into I don't even know how to meditate, and be in that place of unknown and just settle and deepen into that. And anytime it's like, oh, but I have to be doing this or a certain technique or some kind of breathing, it's like, no, I don't know. I don't know. And settling down into that. So playing with that. And recently hearing someone in a group setting say something like, true nature changes the status quo. And to me, that was so inspiring, because I feel like, you know, I don't want to live out of my personality, out of my beliefs and what I'm thinking. I really want to live out of, I don't know, and that space and what you talked about too, Katie, the aliveness of who we truly are. And just the very act of doing that changes the status quo. And we don't have to try to change the world. We change it by just settling down into that spaciousness, that aliveness, that energy is of who we truly are. So that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's, you know, it occurred to me that one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys, and it felt like too much of a riddle. So I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do it because people are going to be like, what? But, you know, I almost wanted to start by saying, what is something that the more you learn about it, the less you feel like you know, and in a way that kind of feels like a good thing, you know, but you feel like you're getting somewhere. You know, and I think kind of play with that tonight too a little bit. And to me, I don't know, feels like the ultimate surrender, you know, like we we're raised to like figure everything out and to know, and now we have the internet and we can look it up and then we can know, but it's like, but not big K no, you know, like that's kind of the nice thing about it, is there's this dance that we're doing with creation and with our, like you said, with our true nature. And it's almost like if we get too close to it, you know, it disappears, right? It's like it's elusive. It's something that we never can quite catch, but obviously we're not quite meant to. And it's this dance of just getting ever more proximate to it, that seems to be the thing, you know, seems to be what's meant to be. So I love that. Cool, thank you. And Nina, welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Anina. I'm from Surrey, BC. So my energy lately has been a little bit scattered, and I've been having really, really weird, vivid dreams. So when we were doing the grounding exercise just now, I had this vision of a little red mushroom house, like a cartoony red mushroom house for some reason. So I just want to share that. It was pretty funny and pretty random. I also wanted to share that on the topic of transition, I do feel like I'm going through a transition, but like in between goals. So I've reached one of my goals and I'm like in a transition period. So I don't know if I want to keep pushing toward my next goal or if I should just kind of settle and let myself enjoy the feeling of reaching that goal. So I think that's why I'm feeling a little bit scattered right now.
Perfect. And I don't mean that to be, but perfect, because that's, you know, that's what we're going to play with tonight. So I think this is going to be great. And I love how you always travel to like magnificent places every time we do a visualization or like a, it's so funny because whatever you do, you come back, you're like, I went here. And I'm like, wow, that is so cool. Cause I literally didn't like have any clue. So thank you for sharing that. I love it. And yeah, we'll definitely be exploring this idea of transitions and energy. I think it's the place that's calling us to visit tonight. So I like it. Thanks, Anina. Callie.
Hi, everyone. I am tuning in from Regina, Saskatchewan tonight. And I like to break all the rules. And I'm kind of feeling the same way as Anina right now. I just reached a goal. And when I was doing that, I already had like 10 other goals planned out, but it's like, okay, I want to do this, 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 and this, but which one can I do right now? And I just want to do all of them. But yeah, I've just been kind of also in an in-between place and just taking time to relax, which has felt really good, especially in the summer, especially when the sun is actually out and I can just sit and soak up the sun and relax and not worry about anything.
Beautiful. Yeah, you've touched on something really important, Callie, which is like that we're just so eager to fill any space with like an additional goal or like what's next. We're always looking at what's next, and just taking that time to really embrace transition. To it's almost like a tea steeping. It's like, okay, so one thing is complete, you know, and of course these are just like made up kind of like, you know, sections that our brain creates so that things make sense and the world doesn't look like chaos, but it does it for a reason. So here we are, right? And just to really let ourselves be in something that we don't know what's going on, you know, where it's not clear that like, well, I'm seeking this goal or I'm pursuing this goal. Like those transition times are just as valuable. They're just as much the present moment, you know, but it's easy to just kind of write them off or see them as something that we have to jump into that next phase. And what's on offer when we just settle in, you know, because so often I think we look back and go, oh, I wish I had taken advantage of that time that I had that was like this, or I didn't have anything going on. But when we're in those moments, sometimes our brain is so ramped up that we kind of got to just like take the mic back, and say, well, what do I want this space, this time and space to feel like, So I love that. And we'll play more with that too. Antonia, are you able to unmute, or are you just listening in for tonight? I think she might be on listen only mode, so all is well. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so when I put together kind of like the loose theme for tonight, I said that we would talk about kind of like planning and goal setting, because what I love is that this group is called Uncharted. So it's like, let's do life without a plan. But then as humans, we always want to, like, we like to create goals and we like to create plans and we like to set intentions, right? And what I notice is I'm in a similar place right now where I'm like, okay, nobody's requiring me to go up and do much, like I've got a lot of things running on autopilot in my life. One big chapter is kind of closed, and I don't know what I want the next thing that I want to do to be is, like, in some ways, like what I want to give my creative energy to next in a big way, because I have a chunk of creative energy that I know I can direct to something, but what I want to direct it towards in the world of form isn't clear. And I think sometimes that can be so unsettling for us, right? Because we want to know so that we can get going, because we want to do the fun thing. And it can look like our creativity kind of lies outside of us, that there are these bundles of activities or people or places that sort of spark and bring creativity out of us. And though I think there are probably catalysts out there, we're innately creative. We are the source of our own creative energy. And so it feels like these times of transition are intentional, like we've been given this space to where, and it's going to feel a little uncomfortable because we want to just like giddy up and get on to the next thing. But there's a sort of kindness to that design of transition where we're asked to really trust. We're asked to let go of our expectations. We're asked to kind of ground back into the idea that this world, that these opportunities and these activities, they aren't the focus. They are merely the vessel through which our creative energy flows. And until we find a vessel that really feels aligned, we're asked to be patient, to be calm, to surrender. And so because I've been in this space of transition for a little while now, I'm getting antsy, and I thought it might be fun to just kind of play in this space. And one of the activities that is like tried and true, and you guys have probably all done it before, but maybe not, I don't know, is just kind of like an energize and a drains list. So I thought that it would be fun and I like to do this, I feel like I can do this week to week and it can completely change, but I thought that it would be fun to do it through the lens of creativity, like what feels creatively energizing to you right now and what feels creatively draining, like what feels like it kind of is getting in the way. And we're not going to do this exercise because we're going to find the one thing that drains us and then we're going to take it out of our lives because we're, it's not about kind of like the exercise isn't about trying to control your environment. It's more just to create insight around like, okay, this thing I used to think I loved right now feels kind of draining to me. So it's an exercise just to kind of shake up a little bit that and maybe create some insight around, well, maybe I'm in this place of transition, but I'm still holding on to activities or ideas that kind of belong to that past phase, which is now past, that I can kind of just say, okay, thanks for serving me back then. But in this cool, liminal space, I don't really need you around anymore. Right. And then just through that awareness, it'll create a lot of, maybe you'll see something on there and you'll go, okay, you're out. You're on my drains list and I'm cutting you out. No more volleyball. Or just kidding. Whatever, right? You're going to see something and you're going to be like, out, you're out, right? Because you just see it and you get it. And maybe there's something on your energized list that you're like, wow, I don't nearly do that enough for how much I like it. And I have all this time, So let's just play. I'll give everyone a couple minutes. If you've got a notepad, you could do it on your computer too, if you're not set up for this, but just Write down creativity at the top, energize on one side, drains on the other. And we'll just take a couple minutes to just jot some things down. And try not to judge yourself too much. Like if you put your mom on your drains list, it's okay. She's not going to read it. And it doesn't mean you don't love her. It's just right now she's feeling drainy in your mind, right? Like just don't think about it too much. Just jot it down. You can burn it after. And we'll come back in about 7 minutes because I like sevens. And we'll just kind of see what's alive, what's shifted. We'll chat a little bit and go from there. Does anyone have any questions about the exercise? No. Okay. I'm going to mute and I'll put on a timer and I'll warn you guys when we're at about like a minute away from the end. 1 minute left. Okay, that is 7 minutes, probably longer. Let's start the timer right away. So in this particular place that you find yourself, whether that is a transition or you're in the middle of something, whatever that looks or feels like for you, I'm curious if this just kind of dumping out the feeling of what energizes and what drains onto the page has opened up any space for insight or information that feels kind of new or different to you. Does anybody want to share? Anina, go ahead.
I'll share. So I kind of want to focus on my drains list because I didn't realize that this is what was really draining me. So mine is social media, group chats that are irrelevant to me, and constantly looking for something, being on the hunt, but don't know what I'm looking for, which ties into social media because I'm always trying to find something. It's kind of like just on the go. And now I realize that's what's been super draining for me and making my energy so scattered because it's just all over. I'm not focused because I can't focus because I don't know what I'm focusing on.
Just feeling really kind of words are just not like landing on me today, but like almost like your energy's like dissected and being sent out into all these different, or your focus being kind of
I'm just putting it all out there because I don't know where it wants to go, and I find that really, really draining because I'm always just trying to look for something.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I find this list really good for is it just kind of shines a light on sometimes being like, this is how you've divided your attention into a million different, you slice it up into a million different little pieces and you're just shooting it out. And so it's like, no wonder you don't feel energized. Like your energy's leaking like it's through a sieve, but you can't put your finger on just one of the holes because there's like 99 other holes that are all leaking energy, right? And so when you see them all written down, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And I feel like social media on its own can be that sieve, because it's like, are you worried enough about your looks? Are you worried enough about how much you're traveling? Are you worried enough about like how you're like, anything that you are interested in, people are doing it perfectly out there on social media, right? And so it's just a really great way to it's like one great way to suck all your energy. And then on other days it can be very inspirational and you can have a great relationship with it, so that's a good thing to notice. What do you feel like is behind that? Like, as far as, what feels like that insight has to offer you? Like what is there mixed in with that?
Mine feels like it's stemming from fear of being too stagnant, maybe.
Yeah, like that feeling that if you slow down too much, you'll kind of just get stuck in the mud and then, life won't flow the way you want it to.
I've always had problems slowing down and really just being. Because
Mm.
for me, I'm always go, 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 need to do this, focus on this, keep going, keep like, but then I've never been good at just staying still and kind of settling and
Yeah, it can
just
feel really
enjoying the time. Yeah.
can feel really dangerous to just stop moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's Michael Neal, who I talk about often, and I actually bought you his book, talks about how life is like, it's like we're on a barge, and that barge is like a roller coaster, but it's on a river, you know, and we think that if we get off the roller coaster, that everything is like stopped, you know, like, oh, we're not on the roller coaster, therefore life isn't moving. But we forget that we're on a barge that's on the river of life, and that even when we think that we're still, life is still living through us, right? And I get that if life keeps giving us invitations to do things that are exciting to us, and we keep saying, no, I just want to sit here and sit still, that yeah, we could be missing out on some of the opportunities that life is bringing to us, right? Some of the things that are being presented. But most of the time, for people like you and me that like to keep busy all the time,
Mm-hmm.
there's real value in that stillness, even if it's just for a little while, being willing to sit in the stillness. And for me, I would say there's probably more fear in being still than there is moving in a direction. Even if I'm not sure if that's the right direction, I'd rather just move towards something to see, because it's like we feel like if we stop, we'll just die. Like, and it, maybe I'm being like a little dramatic, but I think that's what's underneath it all. You know, it's like, if I stop, then I'll slow down. And if I slow down, then I'll get stuck. And if I get stuck, I'll just die here, you know, without accomplishing anything. So that's, I mean, that's a really good noticing. And I like that Michael Neal analogy, because sometimes I have to remember, okay, yeah, I've gotten off the roller coaster, but I'm still on the barge, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
life is still doing its thing behind the scenes, even if I'm not privy to it. And the other thing I noticed too is that it can feel like something has played its course. Like you think, oh, well, this transition period, like this thing is, you know, I've started this and now I've completed it. But life doesn't work in the same blocks that we want to chunk it into, right? Like there can still be something playing out within your life that you think is kind of, that you've put to bed because your brain has just decided it's over, that's still kind of making its way through your system. And so sometimes when we just can completely surrender that process, we just almost notice that a lot of the things that are draining us, it's like, well, these are things, this is because we've put rules around how we think things work in life with our thoughts. You know, we think up, well, okay, it works like this. Like we think up, we call them goals sometimes, or we call them, you know, like whatever it might be. We think up parameters and then we live within them. And then we get either drained or energized based on whether we think they're working out or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for sharing. Does anyone else want to share their experience of their list? Kelly has her hand up. Go ahead, Kelly. You're muted though. I would love to hear what you're saying.
I find that interesting because with the first time Anina shared, I kind of shared something similar. And then my drains list is also similar. I have social media on mine as well. And also just responding to texts and consuming content of like any kind of content at all, even books, which usually I love to listen to books, especially. And then I also put responsibilities because it feels like those have all become a responsibility. Even my friends texting me, I'm like, just leave me alone. And then all of my energizing things are like things that I do by myself, like and resting, self-care, singing, and just kind of being selfish. And then anything to do with anyone outside of me, it's just like, no, stop. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Do you feel like you can honor that right now, or does that feel weird?
Kind of. I've been taking a social media break for over a month. but yeah, then I still, like, people still try to text me and stuff, and then I feel obligated to reply.
Mhm.
And then I try to reply, or then I'll forget, or then I won't reply, and then they'll send more texts, and then it feels like an assignment almost. Like, oh, now I have all these missed texts to catch up on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I was just curious because it's like, um, when I hear that, I think like, yeah, that would be tough for me too. Like if I just was really feeling like I wanted to be alone and I wanted to be in my own energy, um, it would be tough to like to try to figure out how to set that boundary when you know that you don't really want to interact with people, and then the idea of like, well, what are they thinking can kind of like exacerbate that feeling, and I guess like I don't have any advice for you, but I'm curious if just writing that energize and drains list has just helped you to feel more, I guess, validation or more just like of a sense of like, hey, it's really clear to me what I need right now. And even though it's going to be probably a little tough for me to navigate that with other people, it's just like having written this list makes me go, oh yeah, okay. What I need right now for me is to just take my time and be okay and judge myself less on the fact that this is just what I want right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think writing the list really brought a lot of clarity because I didn't really realize that before.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, now that I have the realization that I think that it is something that I could communicate to my friends, and I think that they would understand.
Yeah. Because I know like if I feel guilty for taking time for myself, I'm really bad at communicating to other people that I need time for myself. But if I'm in the energy that I'm like, oh, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what I deserve, then I can like joyfully be like, I'm off grid. Talk to you in a few months. Bye,
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. Sounds like it's just kind of taking you one step closer to, I guess, just kind of leaning into what you already know you wanted, but just feeling like maybe it doesn't have to be so hard. And a lot of that, it doesn't have to be so hard. Just like the cool thing about all of this is it just lives in our thinking about it, like when you're thinking about it gets clearer or gets less cluttered, or just you're able to own it more and feel more at home in that, in that stuff that just feels energizing, and less like you need to live in that place of drain. It all just flows together a lot easier, and you can just be in it with less, I guess, static almost.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to share?
I'll share a little bit.
Thanks, Mika.
I get the social media along with that emails. Oh my God, emails just come in these vast amounts. Like you get up in the morning and it's like pages of emails. It's like delete, delete, delete. Like the first thing I do is like delete a whole mass of them, and then go through. And then there's ones that then you feel guilty because, oh, I really should read this. It's somebody, maybe it's from principals or whatever. And it's like they're writing these blogs or writing. It's like, I really should read you, but I just don't want to read anything else right now. So that is like, I find that one's, there's something about social content, whether it's social media, whether it's emails, that they just, they're 24/7, they're just constant.
Yeah.
And so that I totally get that, and that I go through waves of like, oh, I just want to shut it all down. And I remember the days when we didn't do any of this and that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm at that age. I do remember. I remember when there was no phone other than one in the house, and when you left the house, people couldn't reach you. But also, it's so funny because I wrote down monkey money brain, but it's not really monkey. It's more like spider or octopus, like with lots of legs. And it's just, and it's kind of in the background. It's not like it's, oh, I'm pressured thinking in my full conscious mind about this, where I'm actually, you know, but it's all these little tentacles like, oh, I want to pay off debt. Oh, I want to take this program. Oh, now this gig I was working on is ending and I got to find another part-time gig, but I don't want to work full-time. I don't care if it would pay off my debt, but I still don't want to work full-time because I want to put my energy into building the things I want to do. So there's all that stuff that goes on. And then there's like, so it's like, oh, I want my freedom and I don't want to have to think about this, but then I do need to address this. And so there's, again, like there's like all these little tentacles coming out, you know, and it's all kind of sitting in on low volume, but it's playing a lot, you know. So there's that one. And I've realized, like, because I was kind of doing work where I was doing it at night and watching movies and I was staying up really late. And so then I'd want to get up early and get on Zoom calls or do different things. And so that the late night hours, which is now I'm changing, I'm in the process starting to shift that. So that was another one too, was just, those were like draining elements that I found draining. And sometimes then resistance to things that I really know would be good for me to do and want to get done, but I just don't do them, like get content together to do a website, stuff like that. Like, oh yeah, I'd love to throw together this site, but then there's the content, you know, what am I going to say? You know, I mean, I don't have a list of certifications and all this stuff. So now I got it. How do I make it sound good with the life experience I have and the trainings I have done? So those are all on my draining list. And then I find that my energizing list has a lot of physical things that put me in my body. Painting, which is creative, but it's also, I use my body when I paint, you know, like, so, but singing, dancing, stretching, swimming, as soon as the weather's, it's almost warm enough, we're getting there to where I'm going to be jumping in the lakes and rivers, and that, like, I love. So, but I noticed, you know, a lot of them are using my body as well as the creative thing. So
awesome. Yeah, the body connection can be really powerful, you know, like it just gets us out of our head a little bit. And you know, and I don't know if Antonia can hear, but she's like a movement coach, and I know like there's just certain things that we can sit there and we can argue with our brains for hours on end, but doing something physical can sometimes just be a really beautiful way to just kind of say, okay, this is a no-win argument between my brain and the other part of my brain. And so maybe if I just go move around a little bit, it'll distract them enough.
Pathways. You know, it can open pathways to where, oh, like if I start putting on some, you know, music and start dancing and get my body moving, and then all of a sudden, like a thought can just come to me, oh, that's what I'll do. So it can, instead of trying to figure it out, as we all know, like how the wisdom comes through when we let go of, you know, all that trying to figure it out, like just letting go and opening that flow and getting rid of like the stuckness in our body can help get rid of the stuckness in our heads.
Yeah, totally. And when you were talking about like the tentacle thoughts, you know, like it's so true, because we've got like this thing that we perceive as like a larger problem, and then it's got all these ways of showing up in our life, right? And the tentacles can all be very kind of like they go and then they end in a dead end. Like, I don't know what to do about that, right? It's like, well, I want this and I've got these low level fears, and what am I going to do about that possible pathway, that possible pathway? And so that movement too can either, it kind of feels like it can consolidate some of those into, okay, well, that's not really a very big problem. Yes, I get that I'm low level worried about it, but there's not really anything to do about it. Like, I love how Michael says, if if doing nothing doesn't make it worse, then it's probably a problem that's outside of your pay grade. Like that's not for you to, to like focus on trying to figure out. And so I love that idea that, yeah, like we sometimes sit there and we think, well, I need to decide between A and B. And then we get moving with our body or something shifts and C just pops up. And we're like, oh, it's not about A or B. There's actually there's other possibilities that were outside of what I could see when I was in that kind of limited space of seeing. And to me, that's kind of one of the hallmarks of transition, right? Is that we usually we're in a space where we think we've got 1 or 2 or 3 or 7 or 45 options, but none of them are calling to us. None of them are like, yes, pick me, and so it's almost just like that invitation. Well, you got to stay in transition. You've got to surrender, like maybe you think this is the goal you want, but it doesn't totally grab you. So stay in that place of transition, because maybe it looks like that 95%, but there's another 5% of it that has to form before it clicks and something in you just goes, yes, that's what I want, and that's that kind of, that back to that theme of we can set goals and we can plan, but until that part of us, that soul part of us wants to rise up and go, yes, this is the direction I want to move in, we have to surrender and we have to be patient. It's like life will meet us there and will give us a cue, and it's time to whatever, to act, to move. And so, yeah, I appreciate your share, and thanks for.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll ask you a question. So in that, life will prompt us and that kind of thing. There's a dance between that, like trusting, knowing, listening, acting, and also just straight out procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always one that I'm curious around.
Yeah.
Especially when say, I'll go ahead and there'd be something I really do want to get done, and it is something that's important to me, but I'll procrastinate and I'll go clean out my closet instead. I'll do something really mundane, super mundane. But there's something therapeutic about cleaning it and organizing it. It's like, maybe I'm trying to organize my head, so I'm doing my clothes instead. I don't know.
Totally. My response to that is I don't know, and I used to think I knew, I used to think, oh, well, we just have resistance and we need to just get past our resistance by, willing ourselves to do the thing we want to do because it's good for us, darn it, But, at this point in my life, I really don't know, because there's things that I knew I needed to do and that were really important and I should do them. And I put them off. And then later on, something happened and I was glad I didn't do them because something, you know what I mean? And so I never really know if it's a prompting or if it's laziness, but I guess both are part of the human experience. And the one thing I've noticed is that if we try to make rules around things, like say we put off our taxes and then something happens and then we realize, oh, I didn't need to do that one thing, and now it's good because I waited and I have this information, and that doesn't mean you can't now make a rule that it's always good to put off your taxes, that's not going to serve you, right? Or the other way around, you could do them on time and then be like, I have to always do them on time, and then there was one time when you didn't and it worked out really good, so it's like, well, don't make a rule around that. It's just, I guess the way I see it is we have to kind of take our learnings from a deeper level. And it's like, yeah, if avoiding that thing is constantly putting you in a bad feeling, I guess one thing I've been exploring a lot is because Michael talks about how your thoughts create feelings, all feelings are thought created, but also there's another type of feeling which is just kind of your intuition, right? And so I don't know that 99% of the time I can really tell the difference between them. and I think that's okay, and I because I notice I can spend a lot of time kind of being stressed about why am I not better at figuring out what feelings mean what. And as far as I can tell, feelings just want you to feel them. And thoughts aren't really something that on a deeper level you have much control over. Right. And so to me, the whole conversation is just an invitation to just like keep surrendering, and I guess like every once in a while having a chat with yourself and being like, am I just putting this off because it's uncomfortable and it's in service to my growth, but I just really don't want to do it? Or, like, I guess maybe just not making such a big deal out of it all, not making it mean so much. And then we'll either just get around to it when we get around to it, or we won't. But I think from all the years that I tried to set goals and go after them, it just added an additional layer of stress to me doing something I wanted to do anyways, like I could say my goal was to perform on a dance team, which was my goal a few years ago. But it's like, I wanted to go to the dance studio every day and I wanted to practice and I wanted to be around my teammates. So it's like, it wasn't so much a goal as it was just me showing up to the thing that felt the best every single day. If you're asking like, what would feel the best to do today? I'd like, go dance with my team,
Yeah. I
So-
totally identify with that from my acting days.
Yeah.
Like I loved going into my acting classes and doing these exercises and like, getting up and just doing something, that I had to do for the class, like, just like these that were explorations.
Mhm.
And I built up to that point where I was getting roles, but it wasn't actually doing the roles that I enjoyed as much as I did going in there in the exploration.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a different coming from, right? It's a different coming from. And yeah, I like that. That's really cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Nancy, do you want to share a little bit about your process?
Yeah. There's just that getting a list of the energizing and the draining. It's just that there's so much thinking that goes on, and it's just the thinking is really draining.
Yeah.
And noticing more and more and more of that, and just some of the words I wrote down is just play, explore, listen, learn, open space, fertile soil, beauty, the feeling of the energy. And one of the things I'm looking at is like, okay, there's that whole thing of aging and just feeling like, well, in a short amount of time, I'm going to be here. And it's like, oh, well, when I'm there, what would I like to be creating, all along? And because I'm going to be there anyway, hopefully, else I'll be someplace else. But the sense of that there's a feeling of energy, and I've done a whole bunch of paintings, and then I just got to a place where I couldn't even go in my art room. It wasn't fun. And I was like, oh, I have to make this fun. And it's like, no, you don't really have to make it fun. And what was really fun for me more was being in this conversation and learning more. And now I'm starting to feel like, okay, I really would like to, I'd like to find how that energy of just that expansive aliveness can be with me in that process of painting and doing it from that place of just the pure joy of it, and not from all the draining things of resistance to start, should and evaluate and judge and pressure to act. I've even looked at, well, where do I want to go with this? I have, some paintings that I really love, and at one point I was creating like a body of work, and I thought, well, that would be fun to just put it out there and just, but then I didn't. Well, part of that was everything happening with COVID, and So now I'm kind of like, okay, well, where do I want to go with that? And where do I want to be 10 years from now with that? And because it happens so fast, start thinking, how did it get to be, like 30 years from 1990? I'm not sure how that happened. And yeah, so I just have been noticing, of the energy. And I like what you were saying, Katie, about remembering that we're on this barge, we're on this magic carpet, and being, playful with that. And I know I'm always creating. And I love, like even making a salad to go with our dinner tonight. It's like, oh, it's making all this, like, it just looked really kind of abstract and pretty and beautiful. And it's kind of like, well, maybe that's it. We got these beautiful strawberries. They're so gorgeous. And, and then it's kind of like, yeah, but you only got, how much time left, and so I'm just playing with that. And how serious do I want to take life, and yet I don't want to just like not put my energies where they're most expansive, and but the draining is really very clear about, judging or just listening to all the shoulds and ought tos. And I like I don't know, Callie, if you're still there too, but I like that. I used to do a lot of traveling, and I'd go out and I'd come home and I felt like I had this whole list of people to catch up to. And it was like, are they really thinking that I need to be catching up to them? Or what is that about? That is just crazy. It just is draining. So yeah, I'm just really noticing how am I feeling in any moment, and saying, okay, can I let that go? And be more attention to just that energy, and where is it leading me? And maybe it's to another salad. I don't know. So
I love that so much. I feel that. Some days I feel like that's the extension of my creativity. I'm like, well, I made dinner and it didn't suck.
I know.
So
All right.
worked
I found this tomato, and I just love it. It's so beautiful. And I just want to look at it. I don't really want to eat it. So anyway.
Julia. It's thank you for sharing that, because it's really beautiful. And I think we could rename this list thoughts that energize and thoughts that drain, right?
Yeah.
I mean, easily, because we know where it comes from. But of course, in the moment and in the day to day, we get whisked up in it, and I think we've all been so trained from traditional personal growth that if something's not working, it's me, and I've got to pull up my socks and change my thoughts and do something different. And I'm driving the ship, and I can will myself into a better scenario. But what occurred to me when you were talking is like, what if our drains are part of the kindness of the design, and they're telling us not this, not right now, but it's so scary for us to put like my art on the drains list, because then we're like, oh my God, who am I? And what is this? If the thing I'm supposed to love feels draining right now, it's like, yeah, right now in this moment when you're making this list, in a month from now, it's probably not going to be on there anymore. Or maybe it will, because life is just like, not this, not right now, right? And we make up so much thinking about what that means, oh, but I loved this, and now it doesn't feel like the way it used to feel. What does it mean? And we want to know, and we want to understand with our brain, but life is just like, shush, shush up, let me live you. And we're like, no, I'm going down fighting.
Mhm.
But it's, it's tough because I'm kind of feeling that with dance right now. I love dance so much, and I've moved to this new town and they don't have dance the way I want to do the dance. And I'm just like, what do I do? Like, what do I do? Because thinking about it and trying to figure it out is draining. And so I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
it's not this, not now. It's not, we haven't surgically removed it from you, but left the desire in, like life's not quite that cruel most of the time,
Yeah.
right? But it's that like
Mhm.
surrendering to, um, and yeah, sure, it's thought created, but again, back to like, we're not that sophisticated that we get to mess with the power of thought. Yes, on a surface level, if we're having an obviously crappy, mean, judgmental thought and we catch it, we can go, aha, that's not who I am or what I want to be. I'm going to replace it with this positive one. But most of it's happening beneath the surface, right? And
Mhm.
the way that to me feels like the most peaceful way to navigate life and to get the most out of it is to kind of go with the flow, and I think we fight against that because we feel like it's the opposite of freedom, but it's really not. It's the ultimate freedom,
Mhm.
to just be willing to fully embrace whatever life is bringing forward to us, and to just again be in whatever that moment has to offer.
Mhm.
And I love the idea of just like admiring your salad. I mean, like, I know
Yeah.
it's something to do with springtime too, where just like food is more beautiful, like fresh food, you
Mhm.
look at it and you're like,
Mhm.
it's alive, like, or it was just
It's
alive.
beautiful. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for sharing, Nancy.
Mhm. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, how's everyone feeling?
Mhm.
Pretty good.
Mhm.
We're at about, or Antonia, you're not, are you able to
Mhm.
talk? Is there anything you want to say or check in around or comment on? I think she's on her commute. Oh, there she is.
Hey, I sorry, I just got home, so I've just been listening, but
That's okay.
not really. I've just been in listening mode because I'm kind of like there's a lot going through my head.
Yeah, no, all good. Sometimes it's just being, taking it in and seeing what lands and seeing what seeds get planted for later. So all is well. Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, this was a fun topic to play in. And well, I'll share. So one of the things that I really noticed when I made my list, and I'm not looking for sympathy with this, but one of the things I put on my drains list, and you guys are gonna laugh at me because this is so dumb, but I put no friends because I've moved to a new town and I don't know very many people. And like I have thousands of friends. Like I have people around me all the time, but I don't feel like I found my like tribe here yet. And I noticed that is like the thought that all the draining thoughts stem around. It's like, well, if I knew more people that did this, then I would go do this with them. Or if I knew, if I knew more people that did that in my area, then I would go and do that with them, but I'm like, I notice I'm just like really limiting what I think I can create because it's just me creating on my own, which is like, of course, in my head, like I know is not true, but just to see that written down and be like, oh, that's the linchpin, like that's the big drain. That's like the hole in the bottom. There's like the sieve, and then there's just like the hole in the bottom. And if I plug that, energy would like still come out, but not nearly at the same rate. So that was a really good one for me to notice. Because I think I got really comfortable living in Vancouver for 20 years and having lots and lots of people around me all the time. That now that I'm in this new place, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to intentionally actually have to go and, build that up. So, yeah. And as far as energizing, just like really settling into how amazing my life is, like really just, I think, visiting some gratitude, because I feel like the things that are really good in our lives the more kind of used to them we get, the easier it is to kind of take them for granted and just think, oh, but that's just my bedrock or my base, you know. And it's wonderful, but it's also worth just really sitting in, I think, that gratitude around. So yeah, that's me. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add? Anything to kind of mix in? Any like last insights or things that are just kind of bubbling up or feeling alive from the conversation? Okay, wonderful. Well,
I just want to say I really love your new hairstyle.
oh, thank you. Just got it. I've like wanted to have bangs like this forever. Like I'm always messing with them because I can see them and I'm like, go over there, go over there. But anyways, finally I found a hairdresser that can do it without it being like ridiculous. So I'm very happy about it. Thank you.
Yes, I noticed it too. It's really cool. I love it. Yes.
Thanks.
And I would say, you know, even going through the drain, you know, what drains and what energizes and, you know, the thoughts that come up around that and those subjects. And I'm going to go back to the first thing that I said about just breaking all the rules, you know, and like enjoying the gray areas. So I'm going to take all those and still mix them up, you know, like throw them in the pot and stir them together.
Yeah, well,
see what comes out.
Right. And the point of life is to not like, you know, I was talking about this with a client the other day because she was really concerned about if she was in alignment or out of alignment. And I'm like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I know that sounds so silly, but it's like we so badly want to know what in alignment is, or it's like, well, if you're out of alignment, you'll feel it and then it'll be a cue to push you back towards the other side. But it's kind of like people that want balance. It's like, well, you're always going to be swinging your pendulum a little bit. And that's how you feel. Like balance or alignment isn't a goal to attain or a place to sit and get comfortable. It's a place that we just kind of, I think about it like, you know, have you ever tuned an instrument and it's like with like a tuner on your phone or something, and it tells you when you're like just a little flat and just a little sharp, and then you just kind of get closer to being slightly flat and slightly sharp, but then every once in a while you hit the note and you're like, good enough, you know, like that to me is what, you know, balance or alignment is. It's like, we're going to have drains, you know, we're going to have things that energize us, but we can't have one without the other. The point is not to strip the drains out of our life. It's maybe to open up some space to have a new relationship about how we think about them, because that's really, you know, the drain isn't draining you. Spoiler alert. The thinking about the thing on the draining list is draining you, right? And again, like that whole conversation about how, yeah, thought is bigger than something that we can just go in and like toy with. But it's also the minute we kind of recognize, oh, that's just thought, then thought loses some of its power, you know, and then it can't hold us the same way that it used to hold us. And so that's the dance, is like, aha, I've realized that is thought. And now that doesn't have its claws in me quite so deep. And now what's next? And then what's next? And yes, I'll kind of forget and then I'll go back and remember, but it'll be a slightly smaller forgetting.
You know, I compare that to and I don't know if I said this in another time, but I compare that where like, you know, where like in the Wizard of Oz, like, you know, the guy behind the curtain, like when you move the curtain back, like when you take the curtain away from the thought, like when you strip it back, it's really not all that big and powerful. You know?
Yeah. Totally.
It's the curtain being pulled closed where in your imagination going that makes you think that.
Yeah, exactly. And our imaginations are so powerful and they're so cool. And they're this great tool for creativity. And we also use them to scare the bejesus out of us, you know. So it's like, it's the same tool. We can just use it for, you know, for good or for scary. Yeah, I love that. And, you know, I think we've done a really cool kind of traveling around, you know, and I love that everyone is kind of feeling that transition energy right now, because it's just, and I think too, for me, just doing this list is my sentiment is like, oh yeah, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, whether I call it transition or I call it, getting after a new goal, you know, or whatever. But, you know, and the piece around goal setting and planning that I mean, I think feels really quite clear to me too, is just like, yeah, it's a tool. Like, use it if it brings you more clarity, just like this energize and dreams list, you know, use goal setting or use planning as a way to help, you know, figure out what you want to focus on, and like what's bringing you energy, what's not, help you find that clarity that, you know, helps you calm your nervous system. But it's not a recipe for, if I do this and I make this plan, then everything's going to work out great. You know, it's like it's like almost like we can do that, but then the trick, the caveat is we have to surrender it at the end, right? Otherwise we're creating a very specific map for a very specific life that then becomes very controlled and very small, right? And when we want to walk this mapless journey, this uncharted journey, you know, it's about having conversations like this where we can come back to leaning into and having trust for the process, and knowing that all these things, either these energizing feelings or these draining feelings, are just clues that are helping. They're all there to help us. They're all there to support us. And ultimately, not knowing is more than okay. It's literally the way it is, you know. And the only organ in our body that needs to know is our brain, and it's just really bossy and grumpy and takes over all the time. But we can wake up and remember that we don't have to let it. Anina.
I just wanted to say that after sharing this space with you guys, it made me realize that I'm supposed to be in my transition period. I'm supposed to be practicing gratitude during this period, which is why whatever I'm trying to chase and whatever I'm looking for, nothing is clicking. And I just realized that, you know what, I'm not supposed to be chasing anything right now. I'm supposed to be here, just being present and really enjoying the things around me right now.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. I love that. And I feel the same, like that resonated with me. I'm like, oh yeah, like what if I just made the summer about practicing gratitude? Like my only goal was to feel as much gratitude and like as much aliveness as possible. What would I do? You know, like, well, how would I fill my days? Just like with that as my only goal, you know? Nancy, if you're talking, you are muted. Maybe you're just head nodding, but
So I guess I'm just head nodding, but I was thinking that I like that a lot. Yeah,
yeah,
that just that simplicity of that, and then the power of just noticing and following it. Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks. Mhm.
I love that. I love tonight. I feel like I got lots out of it for myself. So
Yeah. You know, another way I was thinking of, just going back to something I'd said earlier that kind of tunes in, you know, to what you're saying as well, is just like that thing of if one door closed and the other door hasn't opened yet. Hey, who's to say that space between those two doors isn't just as delicious as what's behind either one of those doors? You know?
yes, exactly. It's just like we tend to have more thinking in that space because we think we're supposed to be doing something, but it's like, no, what if the only thing in that space was to be something, you know, was to be gratitude, or just be settled, or be okay with not knowing, you know? And like maybe those are the most delicious little pieces of life, but we always try to make them as small as possible so that we can get out of the discomfort of not knowing. And then we go into what's not real knowing, it's just perceived knowing. Yeah, for sure. Just finding that, like seeing them as the most delicious and the most desirable parts. How would we approach them differently? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, gorgeous. Oh, such a good note to wrap up on. Why don't we all just go around and say one word that feels like mwah. I'll just let you guys unmute at your leisure because there's only 4 of you and I can't imagine you're all gonna talk exactly the same time. And if you do, that'll be fun too. And yeah, and if you can't muster a word, you can have a whole sentence.
Buoyant.
Ooh, like it.
Peaceful.
Thank you, Callie.
Spark.
My word is settled.
Yes. My word feels just expansive.
Beautiful. My word is something, like reinvigorated, like just like something is my word. Everything. Yeah, nice. Awake was my first one, but yeah, like reawake. I'm just like butchering the English language tonight. I'm usually someone that's like prides myself on having all the words, and for some reason tonight as I was talking, I kept thinking like, what are you even saying right now? I just couldn't get the right words out. So thanks for sticking with me, because I feel like the second half became a lot more coherent than the first half for some reason tonight. But that was really, really awesome. You know, I often find that like when I host things like this, I feel like I get really into kind of facilitator mode and I don't let myself explore the topic. But today we just really organically went into a topic that I really wanted to explore for myself too. And so I feel like we took the journey together and feels so good. So thank you for coming, everyone. I do record these and I only share them with people who have, I only send them to the people who've registered but couldn't make it, that really wanted to catch them. So just know that it won't be shared anywhere else besides that. And I hope that you guys can make it next month. Who knows what we'll talk about, but we'll probably end up just getting in the room and introducing ourselves and then finding a path and totally straying from the topic and then totally coming right back to it and completely covering it and then going back on a tangent. So awesome. Well, have a beautiful rest of your night. Hopefully it's lovely wherever you are. Still light here. I might even go outside. Okay, have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Bye. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.